You're watching a Roll for Crit preview, and in this video, we're taking a look at Deeproot Dwellers. In this game, the king is touring all the villages, but only one can earn the honor of the king's favor. So you have only a few seasons to recruit villagers, pretty up your town, and prove you are the one worthy of that favor.
This is a hybrid worker placement and deck building game, and everyone's going to have their own deck full of cute little critters called Dwellers, hence Deeproot Dwellers. And on your turn, you're going to have a hand of 5 cards, at least to start. You may get more later on. And each one of those cards has one of these cute little critters representing their different jobs and their different abilities. You can see on the side there, they each have 5 different skills, and they'll have some points in 2 or more of those skills. All your starter cards will have 2 points in each of them. And each skill corresponds to one of the action rows on the board. And on your turn, you'll take a card from your hand and place it into one of the open slots in one of those action rows. You can use these tokens here to mark that each player has played their first card, second card, and so on. So you keep track because in each round, everybody's going to get to play 5 total cards, and you'll play 10 total rounds before the end of the game. Let's talk about what these actions actually do. First, I want to mention the ability zone, which is way down at the bottom there. Some cards have special abilities printed on them, and when you play one to the ability zone, you get to take that action immediately. So they may let you get rid of a card from your deck or just score some points, various effects that will help you win the game. However, every other action that you see doesn't get resolved right away. Everyone's going to play through all their cards, and then at the end of the round, you'll go through one at a time and resolve them. In order to play a dweller to one of those actions, it will have to have points in the associated skill. So to play someone to this mine, for instance, they have to have some points in the mine ability. Otherwise, they cannot go there. Now we'll talk about what each of them does, starting with the mine. This one gets you gold coins. You're going to be using these for various things over the course of the game to buy new cards, for instance, and add them to your collection. They'll also be worth some points at the end of the game if you have some left over. And you just get 1 coin for each point in mining that you have for every player that places one there. Next is the season row. This one's a little different. It's going to depend on what card is at the top of this pile. And each round, you're going to flip a new card out to reveal exactly what it means. Usually, it's some kind of a competition relating to who has the most skill points in the season skill area at the end of that round. For instance, this one right here says the player with the most skill takes 2 butterfly or bee tokens, or 1 of each. Butterfly and bee tokens are one of the things that are going to score you points if you have a lot of them at the end of the game. Just to give you an example of another possibility that could come up, here's the town fire that says the player with the least skill points here has to discard a card from their garden, which is your personal play area over here. So it could also punish you for not having enough points there. So it's up to you to decide if you want to allocate some cards there, what's worth it to you depending on what this special ability is at that time. You can also see that some of these spaces are only for games of 3 or 4 players. Right now we have it set up for a 2-player game. Next up, we have the explore section. This one lets you move along this explore track over here. If you play enough points equal to or greater than the next section of it, so they're numbered here between 2 and 6, you get to move up to the next space on that track and get a reward. Could be points, or it could allow you to draw more cards to your hand at the end of each round. You won't be able to play more than 5 cards in a turn, but it will give you more options and allow you to draw through your deck faster. Like most worker placement games, it is first come, first serve. So if someone has taken up all the spots, you can't play there. Or in this instance, the later spots are going to cost you coins if you really want to go there and you didn't get there soon enough.
The final 2 spots are planting and recruiting, and they play very similarly, just involving different cards. Planting, whoever has the most skill there gets to take one of these planting cards and add it to their garden for free. Now, each plant acts differently, and when I say for free, I'll explain that a little bit later, but the cards could give you money. Some of them may actually cost money to take, and some of them could be these statues which earn you points at the end of the game. Each card has their own rules, and in addition, if they have a bee or butterfly symbol, you get those tokens, which will explain a little bit later what they do. If you have cards there, but you weren't the most. So right now, looking down there, there's a tie, but let's say the green player had the most, so they got to take it. The red player can also take from the garden, but it's going to cost them 3 coins. So that is where money's going to come in, and hopefully you'll have enough to still be able to take a card. Recruiting is the same thing, except each player has their own recruit deck on the bottom. These recruit cards are the same per player, so the green player doesn't have a specific type advantage, but they will shuffle it differently, so maybe your turn, you'll never see the trickster in your game, but the red player does. Same thing as before, whoever has the most skill points there gets to draft the card, put it in their discard pile for free, while the other players, if they have creatures there, have to spend 3 coin if they want to take the same action. After all players have completed the actions, there's the cleanup phase. First, you're going to discard any cards left in your hand, as well as all the ones on the board, into your discard pile. You'll then draw a new hand of cards, which will be 5, plus any bonus you have, usually from these tokens you earn from exploring, but there are some abilities that may say, for the next round, draw 3 or 2 more cards. Then, any cards left in the lineup here are going to be discarded face down over here, and you get a completely new lineup for the next round for what to buy. So this is going to change significantly each round. Repeat the process as well as with the garden and reveal a new season, which could be forest fire, could be something good, who knows. This will always have 10 cards or more than 10 cards per season, so you don't know what's going to come up. You're going to repeat this for 10 rounds, and then there's going to happen a scoring phase. You will earn some points along the way just straight up from maybe buying certain things, but this is how you're going to calculate the rest of your score. First off, you're going to get a point for every 2 coins you have, rounded down obviously. So money is still pretty important. Next up, you're going to look at your bees and your butterflies. Whoever has the most butterflies is going to get 10 points, but there's also second and third place as well. The same is with the bees with the same score values. Then you're going to take all the cards from your deck, discard pile, as well as the retirement section, pretty much cards that you were able to remove from your deck, and whoever has the most cards is going to get 10 points with the second and third place as well. Finally, you're going to look at your garden. Statues will score 2 points for different flowers in there. Read the card. And the flowers have their own rules. Some of them, like the sunflower, are flat 4 points. Roses, on the other hand, are worth a lot of points, but actually lose points for the variety in your garden. And then there's also daisies, which actually look at the number of daisies in your garden. So read the rules for them to find out how they score. You're going to add up all your points, and whoever has the most has won the king's favor.
So this game really has you playing on 3 different fronts, I would say. Your personal deck and the makeup of it, the action board and competing for spots with other players, and then your personal garden where you're really playing like a separate little tile laying game where you're trying to mix and match which flowers you want.
The other big thing is because there are only 10 rounds compared to other deck building games, at least, not maybe worker placement fits, but deck building, I think I usually have a lot more time. So your choices are going to matter a lot more because you're like, do I want to buy this card now? You only have 10 chances to go up on the explore track. So if you miss around, you're not getting that 20 points.
Right.
So if you're going to specialize, you have to specialize quickly.
Yeah, there may be some cards that with mainly those abilities that will give you a chance to do something extra or make up for something you missed before. But generally speaking, you probably want to have a card in. It's impossible to have a card in each row because there's more than 5, but it feels like you really want to try to maximize your efforts in those areas. And also, unlike a lot of other worker placement games, you're not going to get an extra worker, so to speak, ever. So you don't have to worry about like, oh, that's the zone to go to because I need to get that extra action. That's going to be consistent throughout the game. And I do think it's interesting that they're not just looking at your workers, but also you're competing with other people for number of points. So you could try to play multiple cards in the same row with smaller point values to make sure you have the most there, or you could just go all in. I mean, the mine you actually don't compete in, but for instance, this Guardian of the East here has 5 mine power, so that's just a really good money card.
Well, you can also take up the slots, which is a classic worker placement to deny someone the mine, especially in the 2-player format.
Of course.
What's also interesting is I feel other games similar to this style would be like, oh, planting, the first person who puts a card there goes first. That's really more of a tiebreaker, so you don't need to worry less about like being the first one there and more about how much you put there. Now, of course, being first there could take up a slot and making sure you sort of signal that I'm going to have a lot of points here. But it's not nearly as like that dreaded, like, oh, I didn't put there first kind of deal.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't feel, usually there's like 1 or 2 times when you're like, oh, I really want to make sure I have enough points here to get the plant first. So I don't want someone else to take the flower I want or something. So it's like, do I think they're going to play there? But I also really want to go to this area. And also, again, you need to match up the skills that they have.
Right.
So,
You don't have a worker that can go anywhere. You could have a hand that has no explore.
right. So that is another thing you got to keep in mind at the beginning is like, well, I really want to mine this round. I only got the 1 card that can mine, so I've got to decide that's where they're going. So that helps me kind of, it can help guide you in what you want to do.
One thing I know for me that I don't know, maybe you have to think different, because usually if there's text on a card, I'm like, oh, I get that in addition. No, that's a whole other zone, which is interesting because you have to, in essence, give up one of the other things for that. So that ability, usually you have to be like, is it worth it for me to get the ability, or would I rather guarantee a planting or maybe I have the money so I don't care?
Yeah. Most of the cards are just about those skill values and about you saying, which areas do I kind of want to specialize in this game? And the ones that do have abilities, of course, it's usually nice to have it as an option. And we talked about retiring a little bit, which is thinning cards from your deck. There isn't a ton of that in this game. There's a few cards in your deck that will give you that capability. But I think because you're not going to be recruiting as much or going through maybe as many turns as some other deck building games, your deck doesn't get super big and complicated and watered down. You're pretty much going to have, everyone I think will mostly have a consistent viable deck with the other players.
Well, ignoring retiring, at most, you're really going to aim around 20 cards in your deck.
Right.
I could not remember significantly anything that, like, it wasn't an obvious, like, I'm always recruiting 5 a turn or something.
Yeah. It's a fairly easy game to explain. If anyone's ever played a deck building game or a worker placement game, they'll probably pick up on this. And those are 2 categories people love. And we've also seen a number of games recently that have combined those to great effect. So that's the hot thing right now. So if you like either of those, maybe Deeproot Dwellers is something you want to look at. And also, of course, if you like all this adorable, all these cute little critters, they're fun.
Oh, yeah.
You got Mama down there. You got the Duke. I mean, they're great. They're great to look at.
I enjoy the friendly neighbor.
Oh, yeah, the friendly neighbor. Who doesn't want to invite this guy over for a cup of tea or something? So, yeah, cute stuff there.
Let us know if this is Kickstarter you're thinking of dwelling on, and if you backed it. You can let us know in those comments down below. And, of course, if you're curious, there will be a link in the description.
Yes, go check that out to see, of course, the final look, because, of course, the layout, the cards, some of the text on the cards, all of that stuff can change. Most of the art, I believe, is final, but you're going to want to see the page to know exactly what it looks like right now. Thanks for watching, everybody. This was our preview of Deeproot Dwellers. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Will.
And this is Roll for Crit.
You have reached the end of the video, but before you go, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, and maybe try to help us out on Patreon if you can. If you want to hear more from us, we've also got a podcast. This is released weekly, and there'll be links down below for wherever you want to listen to podcasts.